So you're looking for the best low-carb diet. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you my 3 top tips that I have learned in my over 20 years as a Catholic naturopath. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you the important liver and thyroid connection, so you definitely don't want to miss that. Hello friends, I hope you're having an amazing day. Carolyn Berghuis here, inspirational Catholic speaker, author of Understanding the Jesus Code, creator of the Live Method, and I'm here to help you learn how to live your life healthy, happy, and holy with weekly online videos. In this channel, I share wellness tips and spiritual insights designed to help you live your life fully alive. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. I'm really glad you're here. At any point during this video, if you think, hey, I kind of like this lady and I like the content she's sharing, then please click that subscribe button below. It would mean a lot to me. And also at any point during this video, if you feel free to you have a question or a thought, leave it in the comment section because a lot of great conversation happens there. And also remember to check out the description box because I have a lot of links to information that I share with you in this video, including a PDF copy of my handout titled From Fatigue to Fabulous with Jesus Christ, where I share a lot of my great wellness tips. So this is a talk that I gave at a church. It was a 4-segment series. In this segment, I discussed diet and lifestyle and my favorite tips for optimal weight loss, optimal health, optimal vitality with a low-carb diet. So I hope you enjoy it.
Now let's look at the areas that we can make the change and some things we can implement in our life. So my disclaimer, because we have this in 4 separate talks, so I did go through the disclaimer every time. So I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not treating. This is strictly for informational purposes and for you to take and use in your life as you so choose. So we're going to look at a few different diets here. We're going to have a discussion on keto diet and the blood type diet and fasting. So I'm going to share just a little personal story. So last Lent, as I shared with you, I'm growing in my spiritual journey as all of us are. Last Lent, I thought, for Holy Week, I'm going to do a 7-day water fast. And now, before this, I was pretty carb addicted. I was like, the Cinnabon pancreas is like releasing insulin because it knows it's coming in. And but I thought, I really want to have a deeper experience. And fasting, it's part of all the religious traditions. You know, and it's part of our Christian tradition is fasting. I thought, I'm going to do that. And I ended my fast on Good Friday because I wanted Holy Saturday to be the first day I would eat a little, because you don't go from fasting, you don't go from water fast to like Easter. You go from your water fast to a little food, and then you feast. And I mentioned it at dinner one night that I'm going to do a 7-day water fast. And my husband says, what are you going to do? He says, I think I'll do that with you. And I'm like, yes, because otherwise I know I'm weak. So we did this together, and it was great. On day 4, and we were all ready, excited to do this. And on day 4, I started getting a little weak. I wasn't feeling so good. So I took in some bone broth, and that really helped me. Now, mind you, my body was used to using carbs for energy and not fat, which we're going to talk about with the keto at this point. So I think that was a big part of why I wasn't doing so well. Because I used to feel that I needed to have some type of carb or grain with my dinner. And I don't need that anymore. Some people, you still do as you're transitioning. So anyway, that's how this whole thing started. So 7-day water fast. I dropped 11 pounds. I'm like, sweet. And then I just gained 2 back, so 2 were water weight. So I dropped a net of 9 pounds. My husband, of course, he lost more because he has more testosterone than I have. I have more estrogen. Estrogen is a fat storage hormone. But that's part of being a woman. And I really do like being a girl because my clothes are cuter than his. So anyway, so that's how the journey started. And then as I started learning more about fasting, and I'd already studied a bit on the tradition of fasting inside of Christianity and the spiritual benefits, and I love that. And when I would get hungry, I'd offer up, it was like note to self, to go to prayer, and that was beautiful. And then on Good Friday, I offered up prayers for a dear friend of mine who's a priest in Oklahoma, and I said, I'm offering up everything today, all my hunger, all my discomfort, everything for your intentions, Father, because he's just this beautiful pastor in my life and many others' lives. So that was wonderful. So I started reading and studying more on fasting, and I come across keto, and I kind of heard keto. It's a little newer type of diet, and I've spent so much time the last few years of my life as a professional in my extra time developing my spirituality. I wasn't spending as much time as a naturopath, but then I'm like, keto, that sounds good, and I started looking at it, and I implemented the keto diet. So the keto diet is we have more fat, a small amount of protein, and small amounts of carbs. So our diet is about 70% fat, 20% protein, 5% carbs, thereabouts. It depends on your body. So what happens then is most of us were what we call carb adapted. We eat carbs, we take them in, our pancreas releases insulin, the insulin pushes the blood sugar into the cells for energy. And then all of a sudden, that's gone, and our body needs some more carbs, pancreas again, blood sugar's moved into the cells, and the cells have energy. So it's a real vicious circle, but that's how our body gets energy for most folks. When we become fat adapted, what happens then is our body, instead of using carbs for energy, because our cells, they can receive the glucose, they can also receive ketones. So ketones are made in our liver, and it's an energy backup system. So when our body says, hey, the carbs aren't coming in, it says, I'll take the fat and convert it to ketones. So when we start changing our diet, and we start lowering the carbs and increasing the fat, we're starting to tell our body, you're not going to get as many carbs. So think of a bonfire. And you put the logs down first, right? And then you put the kindling on top, and then you light the kindling. But then that's short-lived. And if you don't ignite the logs, you need more kindling. And so what we want to do is get the logs burning, because the logs are going to give us the warmth that we're seeking, why we're having the bonfire. So burning on carbs is akin to burning the kindling. Burning the logs is akin to burning the ketones. And so what we do with the ketogenic diet is we take the food, kind of our traditional food guide pyramid, where we have more carbs on the bottom, more carbs than anything else, and then we have protein and then fats that we use sparingly. So what we kind of do is we take that and turn that upside down, and we're taking in more dietary fats. Now, I always recommend that you pair the fats with your blood type. I've been doing the blood type diet clinically and in my life for, 15 years, long time, and it works. However, I couldn't lose weight, and I was eating pretty good. Yes, I would have some sugar sometimes, but I really wasn't having that much. And I worked out a lot, as my husband can attest. I would go to the gym, and anyone used to do step classes, the step aerobics? Yeah, I did that for a long time. My knees thank me now. And so I worked out a lot, but I wasn't losing the weight. And then I dropped that 9 pounds with the water fast, and then I started doing the keto diet. And so I have more fats, an average amount of protein, 20 grams twice a day or 3 times a day. I'm blood type A, so I don't need as much protein as like a blood type O individual. And then the carbs that I have, the only carbs that I take in, now I do have some cheats. Like last night we had pizza, I got thin crust, but it's Friday night, right? And it's Friday night movie night, and we're hanging out, having a good time, and it's fun. So most of the time, my carbs are only vegetables, because vegetables are also carbs, and fruit are carbs. So some people can handle like berries and things like that. I'm still pretty carb sensitive, because I don't know where I am on the scale as far as like carb adapted, fat adapted. I think I'm becoming much more fat adapted now, because my body's really changed, but I don't feel that I can bring in a lot of berries and things, because I used to put on weight really easily. And I know I had this ability to, like, my blood sugar to go up and then crash, like super easy, which is not good. That's hypoglycemia. So I would have, when we were younger, my husband and we were younger, I'm like, I need some food now, or it's not going to go well in your life. And he's like, and so he got to eventually understand that that was not me, that was just the my blood sugar, the bouncing that I was doing. And so what we do, when we take in the carbs, and our blood sugar goes up, and then our insulin is produced in our pancreas to bring that blood sugar down by pushing it into the cells. And then we're hungry again, and it continues. So it's just like this roller coaster that we're on with hunger. And so we're constantly moving in and out of the healthy zone for our blood sugar levels. The keto diet changes that, because our body isn't using the blood sugar, our cells aren't using the blood sugar for fuel anymore. And blood sugar is actually more kind of like a dirty fuel, because it's so erratic. It's not healthy in the body, because when your blood sugar is elevated, that's also an inflammatory situation. The immune system dampens down, and our body has the ability to take in sugar, our cells take in sugar and also ketones. So the body can switch to using ketones for energy, and it's more like rocket fuel, because our body, when it uses the ketones for energy, it's more sustainable. And now we have all kinds of cells in our body, including some cancer cells. We all have some cancer cells, and then sometimes they overtake the body and we have a cancer. Cancer cells can only receive sugar as fuel. They don't receive ketones as fuel. So the ketogenic diet cuts off their fuel supply. Now our body will still make carbs. It will make carbs from our protein. And we're still getting some carbs in our vegetables, which we need. This is not Atkins diet. Atkins, we didn't have all the produce to make the enzymes and all the other good things that we need. Matter of fact, when we go on a keto diet and we start to, like fat cells start to shrink because the body starts to use those for energy, inside of that we're going to lose some minerals. So we have to have lots of, like, cups, 5, 7, 8 cups of leafy greens and vegetables every day. And so as our body makes that switch, our body, the energy is more sustainable. And so we're going to look at another chart here, where we look at, see, the insulin level is on the side, and then we have time along the bottom. So what we have, when we ingest carbs, our body releases a high amount of insulin. Now, insulin is a fat storage hormone, because if insulin is there, it's telling the body, hey, don't burn body fat, we're burning carbs right now. That's what's happening. So if your insulin is high, you cannot burn body fat. It's impossible. It's like not going to happen. So we take in the carbs, insulin is high, and then it drops. We take in protein, insulin comes up somewhat, and then it drops. But when we take in fat, and I'm talking not the hydrogenated fat, right? We're not doing that. Even the peanut butter, like peanut butter, a lot of it's the fully hydrogenated stuff. You got to get rid of that. Get the natural. But the fats, so you take in fats, insulin doesn't rise. Why doesn't it rise? It doesn't go up because our body's taking the fat in our liver, converting it to ketones, and the ketones are then the energy source for the cell. So we don't need insulin to move blood sugar into the cells. The ketones are doing that. And then this is not an inflammatory state. It's an anti-inflammatory state in the body. So let's look at some kind of lifestyle options with keto. Now, like this chocolate pudding thing, and this is like totally legit. I make this at home, probably not that recipe, whatever that is, but I use avocado. It's a really good oil. Now, avocado is very well suited to blood type A individuals. The others not so much. Other blood types can have some. I just say not as much. I have a whole avocado every day in my smoothie. I have this great chocolate powder that's alive and full of stuff. But you can find something that's good, and you can add cocoa powder. So I have this smoothie every day. The keto food, heavy in fats and good fats. That's the key. and our produce. It's a very balanced diet. On the keto coffee, in the morning, I have, like I said, I had my coffee. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed, but thank goodness Scott's already up. That helps me to get up somehow. And then I go make my coffee. And so this morning was no exception. I made my coffee. I added some creamer to it. I added some stevia. I added some cinnamon, some nutmeg, and I added a little bit of ghee because we've got to have some fat. And that's my breakfast. And I don't eat until 11, 12, or 1 o'clock because I practice intermittent fasting. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. So in a nutshell, the keto diet, there's a lot of information on the web, tons of great keto recipes. I made some keto bread on Halloween because I made chili, and it was great. It was great. It was full of egg whites and almond flour, and it was awesome. There's tons of information online on the keto diet. So the next diet that I'd mentioned that I use a lot is a blood type diet. Now, our blood type O was the original blood types, and we were all hunter-gatherers. I think that's why they do well with more intense exercise. And then we became more of an agricultural society. Blood type A appeared, and then blood type B appeared about the same time in a different part of the world. And then blood type AB appeared when we have a parent that's an A and a parent that's a B, made a child. And that happened with us. I'm A, my husband's B. We have a B child, and we have an AB child. And so different blood types, depending on the lectin in the foods have lectins, it's going to react with the cells in our blood type or not. And if it reacts, it's a chemical substance called agglutination. It's a sticky substance. So I just recommend that you stick close to your blood type because you're going to contribute to inflammation in the body by this whole agglutination thing. Like, for example, I'm blood type A, and I don't do well with a lot of protein. And if it's been a long time since I've had red meat, and it's not because I don't want it, but it's not like I'm going to do this whole vegan vegetarian thing, which I'm not. I do have some fish and chicken and turkey. But when I eat red meat, I almost go into like a food coma. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Because I don't digest that well. So we want to eat foods that are compatible with our blood type. And clinically, I've been doing this for so long, it just works. The one thing I will share is that the blood type diet will say no to coconut oil. That is a whole saturated fat thing. When you go deeper into the science, which I've looked at a cursory look really, but I've looked at that, and we see that it's more of a saturated fat. But it's like the cup runneth over. We're having way too many hydrogenated fats, and they're saturated in nature. So we just got to get rid of that, and then we have room for like coconut oil and palm oil and the good saturated fats. So we have a little. Does that kind of make sense? Blood type. There's a great book. I'll share this. There's an app too. This is Eat Right for Your Type, and I recommend the revised and updated edition. It was in 2016. There was a revision, so it's probably the only one that you're really going to see. But the old one, there's been a lot of changes in the updated version. Primarily, the one thing that I really, really like is they mention or they'll put a notation next to foods that support the proliferation of healthy microbes. And then there's a little up arrow, and there's a down arrow next to foods that will support the proliferation of bad microbes. So that's really good information because we've got to get the right microbes and support their colonization for our health. So that's the biggest thing. And they're categorized foods, either highly beneficial, neutral, or avoid. And you don't have to completely stay away from the avoid, but you want to know that, hey, if I'm going to eat that, I'm going to fill my plate with some of the others. And then still keep it in the parameters of the keto. That's the newer thing. So after we did the fast and I lost some weight, that was fun. And I started doing the keto, and I started doing some intermittent fasting. And I'll talk about that in a minute. As I lost more weight, I lost a total of 25 pounds. So I was really happy. And that made me put a little spring in my step because I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought, I just didn't foresee that because I was doing everything I thought was right. And I was working out regularly, and then I broke my ankle, like all 3 bones. So matter of fact, today is the first day I have cute shoes on. Yay. Thank you, Jesus. So I broke my ankle. So when you break all 3 bones in your ankle, it's non-weight bearing for 2 months. So like I had the scooter, the knee scooter, but that's hard. If anyone's ever had a knee scooter, that is still brutal. It's not like that's easy. So I was not active for 2 months, and the blessing in that, I was able to really study for my paper, and that was a small blessing. A real sad part, I didn't get to go on our anniversary trip to Italy, but Scott's going to rebook that for us because we had to cancel that. But anyway, afterwards, I was afraid that I was going to gain weight because I wasn't moving. Now, mind you, I've been doing the keto and various types of fasting at this point for like 2-3 months. And I went shopping a couple weeks ago, and I took 2 different sizes in the dressing room, and I started with the larger size, thinking, yeah, it's probably where I am, and like, wow, way too big. And I took the smaller size. I'm like, yes, this is great. And this was after like 2 months of non-weight bearing where I wasn't moving very much. And then I went shopping again over the weekend, and I still haven't gone back to the gym. I'm going back to my Pure Barre, the ballet bar classes this week. So I still haven't worked out. And I took in the size that I had just bought a couple weeks ago, and then one size smaller, thinking, what the heck? And I needed the size smaller, and I haven't been working out. So I don't know if I'm onto something or not, but anyway, I'm still going to go back and work out. So just what I believe has happened is I've changed my metabolism. I'm no longer carb adapted where I'm burning the kindling. My body is now fat adapted where I'm burning the body fat. My liver's transitioning them and making them into ketones. So my whole metabolism has changed. And I was so carb adapted, and I think I was carb adapted my whole life. I was really thin as a child. However, I had my first child when I was really young. I was 18, and I was tiny when I got pregnant with her, and she weighed 11 pounds. She's huge. I'm like, I took home a toddler from the hospital. But anyway, it's because I already had an underlying blood sugar handling situation going on, even though I was still thin and I was young, it just hadn't shown up. So just our body can change. So I'll share with you just a little bit about fasting. I shared with you about the water fasting and intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is something I practice very regularly. So it's really easy. You go 16 hours without eating, and this is most of the time when you're sleeping at night. And then you squish your food window into 8 hours. And what that does is it gives your stomach a rest, your digestive system a rest. And because we don't need to have food first thing in the morning. And I'll start to even like back it up if I want to have a bigger window of fasting. There's lots of great things happen when we're fasting. We give the digestive system a rest, and we move into this process called autophagy. Now, autophagy is where our body says, oh, we don't have food coming in, and it's been, most people, you get to that 36-hour mark and you move into autophagy. So it varies. Everyone's a little different. But with autophagy, we move into that, and our body says, oh, we don't have the fat coming in. We don't have the carbs coming in. And hopefully we're fat adapted before we start doing this. The fasting, it's a little easier, although I didn't do that. And so autophagy, your body says, okay, we're going to break down some old cells and use them for spare parts. And when that happens, it's like from inside of that cell, all those organelles and all the components, the body starts to break that down and reuse them to make healthy new cells. It will do this to cancer cells. It would do this to skin cells. It would do this to old age cells that no longer serve us. So it's a great like internal remodeling process. Because if you think of, like we used to, and I used to believe, but we used to believe, and many still do believe, that we have to like snack throughout the day to keep our blood sugar stable, right? Well, if that's true, let's go back and think of the caveman. So the caveman has some food. They have a feast day. It's like, oh my gosh, we just got the buffalo. It's a good day, honey. And then our body has all kinds of food. And then she's like, oh, I've got the berries too. And then there's this great meal. And they just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. And then they're full. And then the next couple days, their food isn't coming in. And so would it make sense for the body to slow down and start to conserve or like burn its own muscle for survival? That makes no sense. Because the body just keeps lowering and lowering the motor and eating your muscle, then how is it going to survive? How are you going to have the energy to go and get, how is he going to have the energy to get the next buffalo or she to get the berries? So our body goes into autophagy, breaks down the old useless stuff to give more energy. And what happens when that happens, you have more mental clarity, which makes sense. Because for, remember, 200,000 years, we've been walking the earth and living a totally different lifestyle. And you had to be on point with paying attention. Where's the food coming from? What's going on? Are there any threats? And so when we move into autophagy, our mental acuity increases. And when you're fat adapted, your hunger like totally changes. And sometimes it's like, I should eat now or not. I don't really know. I don't really care. It's not that exciting, especially when you get to the second day of like a water fast. Once you got to kind of break through a little initial, you're like, And the third day, it's going to be actually pretty easy, providing you've allowed your body to become fat adapted. So your body adapts. It's because we've been around for a long time, and the body is used to this adaptation. All right, so autophagy. Does anyone have any questions now on keto or blood type diet? Fasting? Yes. Oh, it's a good question. What if you're a diabetic? Type 2? Type 1. Type 1, that's a little different. Because type 1 diabetes, that is an autoimmune where the body, immune system is attacking your cells in the pancreas, telling your, and so the cells can no longer produce their insulin or their digestive enzymes because the immune system's got an attack going on, and you have to take insulin, exogenous source. Those cases like that, I don't like to comment on in a kind of a public situation. You have to have your medical doctor on board with that because we're talking about injectable or you're taking an insulin. And I think it's always helpful to bring in healthy, live, living foods, regardless. But if you're going to like lower carbs, that's going to change the whole insulin picture. And that's a little dicey, so you got to be careful with that. Type 2 is different, though. But yeah, very good question. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes, good question. The question is the Eat Right for the Type book and the app, and the app is the same. Yeah, and you want to get if you type in Eat Right for your type, a couple options will come up when you look in the App Store. You want the one that looks like this. For Dr. Diadamo, he did. His father and then him after. This is the guru in the topic. Yeah, the app is really cool because you can look at it, when you're at the grocery store, and it's got a shopping cart option, which is really nice. So yeah, good question. Yeah, yes, Tisha. Yeah, that's a good question. How sustainable is keto? Can I do keto for the rest of my life? So there's a couple moving parts there. One, in women in particular, to make like our progesterone, some of our hormones, there's nutrients and grains that are helpful with that. So sometimes, especially the week before our period, some of those foods are really helpful. And if a woman's going through like perimenopause, sometimes her body will crave that. So that's then you want to look at the grains that are compatible with your blood type. Now, I do find that keto is sustainable for me. I still want to lose just a little bit more weight. So the people that don't necessarily need keto would be those that don't need to lose weight. They're already fit. Of course, pregnant women, we don't want to change the diet. You can bring in some of the concept of keto, but they need some grains. Some that be like type 1 diabetes we had to be careful with. But for the average person, I believe keto is very sustainable until you get to where you need to be or you want to be. And I find that the hunger's gone when you stick to it. It's like if you brought me a Cinnabon, and I say Cinnabon because I just, the icing is, but I'm like, or white cake, I used to like that. I'm like, it's not there. So I think you just had to, once you become fat adapted versus carb adapted, just stick with it. Find ways, you may not be getting in enough fat. Find ways to get in enough healthy fat. And sometimes it's willpower. The two of you are doing it together. That's why Scott and I did the water fast. It was so helpful to have his support in that. Yeah. Just get back on the wagon. Yes, Sandy. That's So the question is, when you're an emotional eater, like how does that play into keto? And emotions are so much stronger than willpower sometimes. And I had mentioned earlier that I used to eat chocolate, and I used to like chocolate, and it's okay, but it was an emotional thing for me. It was the place. It was the place that I found mother love, because my mom would like chocolate, and so if I was wanting like mother love, I identified that with chocolate. So I did some emotional work on myself, and a kind of forgiveness work, like forgiving myself for believing I can only experience mother love with chocolate. And I did like my own LIVE session. LIVE is an acronym for Love is Victorious Everywhere. It's the emotional and spiritual work I do in my office. And I did that type of work. And then later I'm like, I used to have chocolate every day. And this has been now decades. So quite often there's that emotional component. And then there's also an underlying nutritional component, like chocolate in particular. It can be a magnesium deficiency. So you get those two together, and it's, you got to address the emotional component. Yeah, right. And that's, we got to take it in and make it our own. And the hope that's the contributors to adrenal fatigue is that being a perfectionist, and then none of that's healthy. And I don't measure. And the reason I didn't go into like measuring out the different grams and things in the keto diet, it's like we just got more good fat and some protein, and the carbs, get a lot of vegetables in, and there are a lot of good recipes out there that you can substitute and make breads and cookies and things. You still don't want to have a lot of that, but because you don't get the nutrients you do in the greens, but there's a lot of options, and it's kind of fun. So yeah, you got to make it real. Yeah. So if we don't have healthy liver function, or if the liver is congested, and we'll look at that in the healthy lifestyle talk, if the liver is congested, it's going to have a hard time converting that thyroid hormone T4 to T3. And also, if we think about our blood for a moment, but every 5 to 6 minutes, all of your blood has filtered through your liver for your liver to clean it. So every 5 to 6 minutes, all your blood is filtered through your liver, and your liver is doing its darndest to clean this blood. And then the liver also has to take your thyroid hormone and convert it from T4 to T3. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that we're nourishing and taking care of our liver. Anyone know where your liver is? On your right side? It's a pretty big organ. Yeah. So what foods are we eating that are adversely affecting the liver? So we talked about white bread because of the glucose. So if your blood sugar shoots up really high, and then your pancreas releases insulin and pushes that insulin into the bloodstream to get the blood sugar out, that's nice. But normally, we have too much glucose at any given time for that to be sufficient. And the cells are like, hey, I can only handle so much. So then a lot of that is going to be stored in the liver, especially sugar. Like white sugar, that doesn't go in the muscle cells for storage, doesn't go, because it's energy. But white sugar will be stored in the liver, and we have a fatty liver from that. So one of the things we want to do is really limit our exposure to sugar. And I've got some good tips for that, because I used to be, oh my gosh, okay, so I used to really like sugar. And I swear, I would look at like a Cinnabon, and my pancreas would start releasing insulin because it knew that was coming in. And I've totally changed, and it's been a huge blessing. It's one of the things I'll share with you a little later how I did that. Because I used to hear like, oh, limit sugar. I'm like, well, I'm really not eating that much. But my body wasn't changing, so I was eating too much. But I was craving it. I was in this vicious cycle of craving it, and I'm going to share some things to help you to break that. So sugar is harmful. And then the candy here, the dyes, the liver has to clean up those dyes. You know, the red dye, the whatever, all the dyes there. And then the fried foods, and see this donut, that is like one of the worst foods you can put in your body. One, you've got the sugar, and then it's fried. So like these French fries, they are cooked in, it's an hydrogenated fat. So an hydrogenated fat is just the company or whoever made it, and we don't want to get mad at them because, oh my gosh, if they don't make hydrogenated fats, I'd be okay, because that's, bargain, right? So, like, okay, they're doing what they're doing, and I'm going to bless them for whatever they're trying to do and hope that they do it a little different. So, So the hydrogenated fat comes in your body because it started with the vegetable oil and they added extra hydrogen to it. And then the body's like, I don't even know what that is because that structure is not natural. So the hydrogenated fat, and it's on our labels. You can read the labels. It will say hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated, fully hydrogenated, trans fats. So the hydrogenated fat gets in the body and it locks into your cell membrane. Needs fats. It needs lots of different kinds of fats too, by the way. These, like your omega-3s, your 6s, your 9s. It needs kind of an assortment of all these fats. So the hydrogenated fat gets in there. It locks in to a receptor site that needs saturated fats. But our body really likes the God-made saturated fats. We see it in butter and coconut oil and palm oil. But anyway, the hydrogenated fat gets in there, and it will rip open that cell membrane because it's not quite the God-made saturated fat. And then we'll have premature cell death. And then beyond that, those trans fats, those hydrogenated fats, they get in your body, and they have what we call a half-life. And their half-life is 57 days. So if you eat it today, then in 57 days, half of that trans fat, which is causing premature cell death, which is causing inflammation, and most of our modern diseases, the root, they have a common denominator, and it's inflammation. We are an inflamed society now. In large part, that's our diet. And I'm not, and I don't advocate saying I got to do a 180 unless you have a serious disease. But I think we have to do this in a way that we feel good to make the changes. So I'm not up here like, oh, you're doing bad. This is information so you understand why you're going to make the changes that you make. Okay, so in 57 days, you take in that hydrogenated fat today, that donut, the fries, whatever. In 57 days, half of it's still there. 57 days from there, half of it, and so forth. So these hydrogenated fats that cause pain, that's the pathway that they go in the body, they will cause pain. They're really hard to get out, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's why making a change in your life doesn't happen overnight. Making a change in our relationships doesn't happen overnight. Everything takes time. So
thank you for watching my video. I hope you got some great tips that you can bring forth into your life so you can live healthy, happy, and holy. And in the meantime, keep transforming, and we'll be back together soon.